Hello guys, welcome to Genius Slacker's YouTube channel. This is my first tutorial and I'm gonna show you how to implement enhanced input in Unreal C++. This is a new feature which is still experimental in UE4 and UE5, but so powerful and makes life much easier. Before watching this video, I recommend you study documentations about this feature and then back to this video. I will follow the same steps as documentations. Alright, I opened a new blank C++ project with a started content and named it input. You must not name it something like enhanced input because it will make a conflict with plugin name. From the project settings, plugins, go to input and enable enhanced input plugin. Go to project settings, input, and set the default player input class to enhanced player input, and set the default input component class to enhanced input component. Then close the editor and go to Visual Studio. There are two things you first must check. Open the U project file and make sure enhanced input plugin is there enabled. And then go to source folder in input and open einput.build.cs file. For the public dependency module names, you must add enhanced input module. And then build it to see if everything works fine. Alright, now hit the local window debugger button to open up the editor. Go to C++ classes folder and create a new character class and name it my character. From the documentations, we copy paste codes and then we complete them. To implement handler functions, there are two ways listed in documentations, and we use the first method. We need to include enhanced input component.h to define our input actions. We define a structure and put our input actions there, so everything gets nice and clean. And then we need a variable of our structure. I changed my input action name to movement action. And finally, input mapping context is the last variable we need. Then I replace my movement action in codes from documentation. For my handler function, I use the signature that is recommended in documentation. It has to be a U function. I included Kismet system library because I want to print a string and test my function and see if it works. And the final piece of code from documentation is to add enhanced input subsystem to player controller so it can use this. We need to include enhanced input subsystem.h for this code to work. and set input mapping context as well. And then build to see if everything works fine. Go to C++ classes folder and create a blueprint class from my character C++ class. Set mesh and add a spring arm component and a camera component to the character blueprint class. From class defaults, you can see that our movement action and input mapping context are correctly exposed, and we can set them from here. Right click on content browser, from input, add an input action and input mapping context. Open input action and for value type, set it to axis 2D. Alright, now when I press W on my keyboard, the right message is printed, but I want it to be triggered on every tick or every frame because it's gonna be a movement action. So I changed the E-trigger event to be trigger instead of started. I compiled my code and tested it again. Now as long as W key is done, the message is printed. Now we should go and implement our movement function. Unlike the traditional method that we would implement move forward and backward separate from move right and left, now we want to combine them in a single movement function. So we have a simple, clear, sexy function. I used value index 1 for move forward scale and value index 0 for move right scale, because we already set value type to be axis 2D, x and y. So x is right vector and y is forward. I must have used the yaw because F rotator is a pitch yaw roll structure. I use the same structure recommended in documentations for my directional input. Now we can see that everything works fine and even diagonal movements are working correctly. Okay guys, I hope you learned something new. In the next video I'm gonna implement rotation inputs. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel.